Telegram.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Temple Daily Telegram Sports Podcast. Here we are, week 8 of the high school football season. We are all looking forward to it. Trust me. If you could see our faces now, you could see the excitement. We are thrilled.
We're as excited as the decor in the Temple Daily Telegram library.
Back with you, Josh Weaver, Marcus Hood.
Hello, people.
Greg Willie.
Hey.
Daniel Zepeda.
Hello.
And before we get into all of what's going to be going on this week, I want to bring back some footage from last week. Marcus predicting Buckholz win. The only guy. Who am I kidding? We can't bring back any sort of audio. We do not have that capability whatsoever.
We don't have
We don't have
technology.
a sound engineer. We don't have anything. Anyway, but Marcus did. You predicted that win. Congratulations.
Pick of the week.
Anyway, I wasn't looking for feedback. I was just.
Okay.
We only have so much time.
All right, I'm out.
Here we go. Belton at Killeen in 12-6A on a Thursday night from Leo Buckley Stadium. Also in 12-6A, Temple at Killeen Ellison, Harker Heights at Hewitt Midway, and Killeen Shoemaker at Waco. Going forward, the last 4 weeks of 12-6A, all the games are going to be big for 5 to 6 teams as we try to decide probably the final 2 playoff spots in that district. Also going on Friday night in 5-4A1, China Spring at Gatesville. 14-4A1, Liberty Hill at Lampasas. I'm not sure why I read that one. It just was next in line. District 8-4A2, Salado at Lorena. And 10-3A1, Academy is at Cameron Yo, and Rockdale is at Troy. In District 8-3A2, Rogers opens up league play at Hamilton. Unbeaten Rogers, 6-0. In 8-2A1, Riesel at Bruceville Eddy and Moody at Bosqueville. In 13-2A1, Rosebud Lot at Holland. Holland also unbeaten. In District 13-2A2, Granger at Bremond. In TAPS Division 4, District 3, Central Texas Christian is at Shiner St. Paul. In TAPS 6-man Division 2, District 2, Holy Trinity Catholic at Victoria Faith. And in non-district, LaGrange Homeschool at Buckholz. The now 1-5 Buckholz.
I've got Buckholz again winning.
Congratulations,
The
man.
aforementioned Badgers.
Yes. Well,
I'm not picking against Buckholz the rest of the way.
all right, cool, man.
Even when they play Calvert?
Even win.
Get closer to the microphone.
Oh, okay, sorry.
We're going to get in trouble.
With our sound engineer.
Yes.
Dedicated sound
Who is apparently as hard to see as the Killeen running back.
Whatever his name is.
Right. We'll find out if it's correct on the roster this week.
We're just calling him Darren Sproles for now.
Cool. As I mentioned, Belton is at Killeen Thursday night. We'll go chronological order because Thursday comes before Friday. So we'll talk about the Thursday game first, just real quick.
I don't know, that's putting Belton in front of Temple.
I know,
You sure
which-
you want to do that?
Whatever. I mean,
No, go
what
for
are we
it.
supposed to do? I mean, really.
Let's go for it.
I kind of find, yeah, whatever.
I think most of our listeners to this are from Cameron or Holland anyway.
Probably,
right?
yeah.
So, okay.
And we could put them in front of Belton.
We
and
got
Temple
no
if we
better
wanted
team
to.
than Holland
We can
in
do
the area.
whatever we want,
Yeah.
really.
Let's go with Belton.
It is almost 10:30 in the evening on a Wednesday, and we're sitting in a dusty
Mausoleum.
newspaper thing. So
We love it here.
Now people want to pick at us, they know where to show up.
They don't call it the morgue for nothing.
yeah. Tigers need a win. They need a few of them going down the stretch. They are 2-4 overall, 2-2 in district after 2 straight losses to Shoemaker and Temple. Belton's coming off its open date, and they can't really afford to lose too many, so they're going to be going into Leo Buckley Stadium. Hopefully with a fast start. That's what head coach Sam Skidmore would like to see. Going against the Kangaroos, who have lost 3 in a row since beating Copperas Cove third week in September. But anyway, Belton, they're still fighting some injuries. Skidmore said this week that they're still going to have a few guys out, or a few guys are going to be game-time decisions, so that's about the same. They're going to just have to step up with the guys they have and figure out a way to get things done. They're trying to make the playoffs for a 6th straight season, going back to 2014. And this is a good place to start that push, is against the Kangaroos, who, can make some plays, as we've seen with pretty much everybody in this district. Each team has moments, but it's going to be, for Belton, can they limit big plays from a pretty decent quarterback in James Terry? Is that right, Greg?
James Terry,
Yeah.
senior.
I think he's third in the league in passing yards. Just over 1,000 maybe.
Yeah.
They're without their best running back, Kadarius Marshall, sounds like, for the season.
Yeah.
But a kid named Emery Arthur, a late pull-up from JV, had over 100 yards rushing last week against Temple. Wildcats won pretty handily, but still,
Yeah.
Killeen can move the ball a little bit, and Belton's going to have to stop him. So,
Yeah. Killeen just so many injuries right now. It's not really their, full team, but, it's part of football. But, Killeen, they played really hard against Temple. Just their the injuries on defense really showed up, and, it's just been a tough year for them to get anything going. But
Yeah.
Belton's fighting some of the same battles
Yeah.
with injuries. So
Right.
Who knows?
well, moving on to Friday night action, and let's get to it. Temple on the road to face Ellison, which open district with a narrow double overtime loss to Hewitt Midway, and it's kind of been a lot of that same heartache for the Eagles as they continued on in district. And Temple coming into this one riding a 5-game winning streak. So, Greg, what are you expecting out of this one?
Seems like it has all the elements of a trap game, perhaps, for Temple, except for that I think they're giving Ellison a lot of respect as a team that you can't really judge them by their record. I mean, your record is what it is, but Scott Stewart, the Temple coach, made a pretty good point when he said Ellison, it's not quite 3 plays away from being 5-0 in district, but it's pretty close. I mean, last week against Shoemaker, they got a 22-yard field goal attempt as time expires to win the game over Shoemaker, and they miss it.
Yeah, those short field goals have not.
Yeah, I also want to take a delay of game penalty and get a little farther back, maybe.
I don't know.
A tough angle or something. But
Or score a touchdown.
yeah, they basically had 2 games in this year on missed field goals, that chip shot field goals. Against Midway, double overtime, could have sent it to a third overtime. And then they had an overtime game against Harker Heights where, Heights had kicked a field goal to take a 3-point lead. Ellison gets the ball, chance to drive it in for the winning touchdown. They fumble on the first play, the snap,
Right.
don't get it, game over. So, I mean, really, Ellison should probably be at least 3-2, maybe 4-1, maybe even 5-0.
Yeah.
But they're not. So, and this is a difficult test for Ellison because Temple right now is just kind of going full barrel on offense. I mean, we saw it against Belton, 66 points. Last week, 56. Vance Willis is he's going crazy at the quarterback position right now, throwing the ball and with his legs, and he's got so many weapons around him. But I don't know, though. You look at what Ellison has just from a talent standpoint, like injuries are not a thing for them. It's more just like underachieving. They're finding a way to lose as opposed to finding a way to win because they've got a quarterback, Breezion Spiller, that's he's got about 2,000 yards of offense. Somehow they're only averaging like 16 points a game, even though all the other numbers look good. It's just like they're wearing out the field between the 20s, and then they can't score when they get in the red zone. So they've got dudes, that are capable, very athletic guys. They got a state triple jump champion, Stacy Brown, is their best receiver. They got 2 big running backs who run the ball. Spiller can run and throw very well. He's really quick. You've seen him. I've seen him. He can just change direction on a dime.
Yeah.
And then you look like you would think, well, maybe their defense isn't very good. Statistically, they've got the best defense in the district.
They've only given up
93
points in district, which is third best.
Yeah. So, like a typical game was they played Waco earlier in the year, and they beat Waco 16-0, which shows they've got a good defense. But to only score 16 on a fairly weak Waco team shows you, man, they struggle offensively to score. So
I'm trying to figure out, have they played Cove yet?
they did. They actually won 21-16.
Okay, so I think last week the 29 or 28, whatever it was, against Shoemaker. I think that's the most Ellison's given up in a district game, which isn't really a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, Ellison only scored 6 points in their first 2 games this year.
Yeah.
So they're just, even though they've got the pieces that look like they would be a high-scoring offense, they haven't been. But I think Temple will be tested in this game. I mean, it's on the road. You got to bring your own atmosphere over to Buckley, as we know. And but you would think Temple, if they just played their normal game on offense, they're going to put up some points and yards, and you just wonder if Ellison can really match what Temple can do. And also, Ellison's been kind of turnover prone. They've
Yeah.
lost a lot of fumbles. So unless Ellison wakes up and just plays its best game of the year, you think that would be a pretty good matchup for Temple. But Ellison's much better than that 2-5,
Oh, yeah.
2-3 record.
Definitely,
looks
and
like.
they're like Belton, like Harker Heights. I mean, the Eagles are fighting for their playoff lives at this point. So they're going to at least that's going to be in the back of their minds as well. And I know
They're like an injured animal right
Yeah.
now. They're dangerous.
Yeah, and I know you have some 12-6A stuff written down on your notes. I mean, right now, Temple and Midway are 4-0,
Yeah.
and then it's Shoemaker at 3-1, and Heights at 3-2. The Knights have won 3 in a row since losing to Belton, 21-14 in a game that was pretty close. I mean, the final score is close, but I mean, Harker Heights was right in there.
Heights does have a pretty tough finishing
Yeah.
schedule, and they're at
Right.
Midway. Cove
This week, yeah.
Cove, maybe a toss-up game more or less, open date, and then finishing with Shoemaker. So,
Right.
I mean, if you had to project Harker Heights' final record, you'd probably guess 4-4 right now.
Yeah,
Shoemaker, they should pick up a win at Waco. That's going to be a big home game against Midway on a Thursday night. I like Shoemaker to at least get to the 5-win mark.
sure.
So really, you
Because
probably got.
are they idle again the last week, or was that a couple years ago when they did that? No, Ellison's idle in the last
open,
week this
yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Okay,
they got to play 10 straight
Yeah.
games. But right, conceivably, you got Heights, Belton, and Ellison. Really, those three fighting for the final playoff spot. Unless Cove can get really hot and maybe get to 4-4, but that's pretty unlikely.
right at this
So-
point. Yeah, and Belton hosts Ellison next week. So, as I was saying earlier, I mean, Belton, they probably need to win 3 of their last 4
Yes.
to get in. That would be the best way to do it.
And
Dropping
really-
one really against Colleen
Yeah.
this week or against Ellison next week. Those would be pretty damaging because then they finish with Waco, and Waco's not that great, and then Midway at home, and that's always a tough one for Belton.
It is.
So-
Although this, if you just look at some things, I mean, this could be the most kind of gettable Midway team that they've
Sure.
had in a while,
Yeah.
but no one's gotten them yet because
No.
they're 38 in a row in districts. So
Right.
you got to get them.
Yep. All right, what should we get to next? 10-3A? Or how about Salado Lorena?
All right. Yeah.
Salado was idle last week, but before that, they picked up a pretty big win, and we talked about it last week, beating Robinson, which apparently is something that other teams are doing as well because the Leopards did that last week. And these two teams, this is kind of a swing game for both of them, I think. I mean, Salado right now is 1-1 in district, technically in 4th place, and the Leopards are right behind them at 1-2. But Marcus, I think you might be there.
I think so. Yeah, seems like it's been like 2 decades since I've been out to Lorena to cover a football game, but Ray Biles was still out there coaching back then. He's pretty much Central Texas's longest tenured coach, probably, if you think about it. I think he's...
Probably took over for Jack
20
Welch when he left Cove.
This is like his... I think he started there in 92, so this is like his 20... What are we at?
28th year in a row, I think that would
Yeah.
be. Yeah.
Good math.
Yeah, thanks.
And this will be a contract...
Marcus is always trying to,
I went to Southwest Texas State.
he's
so.
trying to pop quiz us all the time. He knew the answer, but he was just like, come on, guys,
I want to make
raise
sure
your
you
hand.
guys know it too.
Right, I was waiting for Daniel, because he's not good with those math skills yet.
I'm not.
And yet he's the guy we trust with the
Right, I
stats.
know.
You are right. You were heading down the contrasting styles of offense.
Right, the
Yep.
contesting styles. Lorena's kind of a multiple. They'll pass a little bit more than they run. We know Salado's going to run that wing team, just run the ball with their 3-headed. Well, we keep calling it a 3-headed monster, but it's really 3 different guys. Because I've never seen a 3-headed monster play football, and I don't think I want to really. But they do have.
I used to see that Liberty Hill rushing attack. It was pretty much a 3-headed monster. Fire breathing even sometimes.
And right now, Salado's got a version of it in a way. But Lampasas likes to throw the ball. They've got
passes.
Lorena. Jeez, where are we? Lampasas, Lomita, Lorena, Liberty Hill, Lubbock.
Laredo.
Now you're just getting crazy, man. But anyway, They have 1,600 yards passing on their year, 970 yards rushing, and they've got a receiver, Ty Moore, who, the reason I was thinking line passes is because he pulled in 257 yards receiving against line passes, which is one of the top 10 in the state right now, I think. And he's got 886 yards total. That's over half of the receiving yards. So he's going to be the guy that Salado has got to kind of keep an eye on.
I think he's got like a touchdown every 4 catches or something like that.
It's ridiculous because he doesn't even have, when I was looking at kind of the statewide, his receiving yards are kind of up there, getting close to some of those numbers, but his actual catches, receptions are not. So, he's got a good average.
Yeah.
You just target him when you need him, basically, and he's going to get you some yards. So,
Yeah.
the one thing, surprisingly about Salado is they do have a pretty decent secondary.
Yeah, they've only allowed 712 yards passing
Right.
this season so far.
And yeah, like you mentioned, it is
Yeah, but that's a lot more than they've passed for. Sorry.
True,
and that's not
but
You're not wrong,
average
Greg.
wise, they're not giving up a whole lot through the air.
And this, it is a game that, Lorena looking at 1-2 right now in district. Salado 1-1. To win this game, you kind of get that edge up on that final playoff spot. I think a lot of predictions still don't have Salado making the playoffs, from what I've seen. I haven't looked at too many, but I think Lorena's probably a little bit favored in this game by most statewide predictions. Not that we care about those, 'cause as I told you guys last week about what one statewide prediction showed about 10-3, So, But anyway, it should be an interesting matchup, and it'll be a team that likes to control the ball, control the clock in Salado versus a team that's just going to put it in the air, put it on the ground, do what they can to beat you, find the weak holes. I'm not sure exactly what they base out of offensively, but I know that they have a lot of weapons out there that can move the ball.
They have a good quarterback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
2-year starter, I believe. Lena, I think is his name.
yeah,
That
yeah. You're
sounds
right.
right. I was trying to find his name just now, and I just kind of skipped over it. 'Cause I
The
couldn't
running
find
back's not
something.
bad either.
Right.
When you look last year, Lorena won the game fairly easily, 33-13, but that was kind of a little bit of a down year for Salado, and it's a really good year for Lorena. I think they were 11-2.
Right.
So you're like Salado's definitely better this year than they were last year. Lorena maybe not quite as good, so you think this would be a pretty tight matchup.
Yeah, they do kind of over the years. They've kind of played each other because they've had to in district.
Yeah.
But when they do play, it's kind of gone back and forth in the series. And there was one, I want to say maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, that was 75-67 type of game,
Cool.
as I recall.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'm not
Good luck with that,
expecting
Bob.
that's this. If we get that,
You better hope not.
Friday
You're the
night-
one covering
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, if I'm there for that this Friday night and that's the score, I'm just going to
Well-
call Eric, our sports editor, and say, you know what, forget it. I'm not coming back.
That's how you go out.
well, he's not going to be here
Oh, yeah.
Friday night.
Oh,
I will be. So
then I'm calling Josh. So, well, man,
the
since it's
consequences.
since it's you,
are gonna
man, I'll
be
do it for you,
major.
Josh. I'll
Well,
do it for you, buddy.
Well, if you're Salado, going into your bye week last week, Coach Allen Harris really got to like where his team was. You start off district with a loss at Waco Conley, but you play them, a lot closer than probably most people would have thought that you would. And then you come home and you get that first district win against Robinson. You force a ton of turnovers, turn them into points, really play well against them, and then your idle week last week. So hopefully, I know the Salado faithful are hoping the Eagles can come back. Just continue to be on the roll that they have been, and hopefully this idle week hasn't taken away any momentum or anything like that, because it's going to be a big one for both squads on Friday.
And another big one that we have coming up, Rockdale at Troy in District 10-3A1.
Big game.
It is.
Yeah.
Winner will be
Chicken
in
dinner.
first place in that district.
Yeah, and Troy actually, with the win, and if Cameron Yo wins and Lago Vista wins, Troy's in the playoffs. That clinches it for sure.
Oh, wow.
And even if they win and some other scenarios happen, they can still get in the playoffs. But, pretty much, if they win, they're going to be in the playoffs no matter how things fall, just because of
at
once they
that
can do is 4-2.
and at that point they'd have wins over Rockdale and Cameron.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
which is the main thing.
Yeah, and I mean, it would be, you don't want to jinx anybody or whatever, but it would be relatively smooth sailing for Troy
Which
if they get past Rockdale.
and 10-3 if that even happens.
Right.
That's
Salem.
easy, though.
No, exactly. But I mean, that they have, Yo and Rockdale out of the way with victories in tow. I mean, that would be, pretty huge for the Trojans.
When does
But,
Troy get the open date? Is that coming up pretty soon?
let
They
me
haven't had it yet.
let me look.
They're playing 8 straight weeks at least.
After they go through 10-3 they're open, it's going to be like the bi-district game of the playoffs. It's like, oh, this is nothing, man.
You know what we just had to go
It's
through?
it's the last week. Yeah, they play
okay.
10 straight.
Yeah, that works out
straight.
good for them, actually. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah, they play 10 straight. But I mean, Rockdale's for one, they're going to be thinking about last year's game
Right.
that they lost at home to Troy.
Yes.
And two, I think and Marcus can attest to this probably, they went into last week's game against Lago Vista kind of with a chip on their shoulder just because they had heard some people, I don't know who these people are, but, who has Rockdale played this year? They've been putting up
Right.
numbers and beating people, but are they really that good? And I think they wanted to prove that they are that good, and they went about it pretty handily
Oh, yeah.
in beating the Vikings last week.
Yeah, they didn't have too much problems against the Vikings. And I mean, when I was talking to Cameron Valdez afterwards, and that's what he was saying, is like, we're undefeated, we've got the rankings, but people are still kind of doubting us just because they're saying that. We haven't really played anybody good. And I think I had mentioned last week, you look at the records of the team that they had beaten, and they had only combined for 4 wins. So you can understand some of that doubt.
Mhm.
You're only going to play the teams that are on your schedule. You can't do anything about what those teams do elsewhere.
Mhm.
You just got to go out there and beat them. And it's not your fault that Giddings is 0-6 or whatever, and
Yep.
Caldwell's 0-6.
Right.
But Rockdale, I mean,
Yeah, it's their own fault that they're 0-6.
exactly. And it's
They're the
kinda-
ones playing the game.
It is kind of Cameron's. I mean, it is kind of Cameron Valdez's fault too because he helped Hannah both the loss. But yeah, I mean, Rockdale. Rockdale's good. We know that. Troy's good. We know that. And yeah, I think it may just be that chip on the shoulder against Troy, wanting a little bit of revenge, go into Trojan field and maybe do what Troy did to them last year.
Yeah, Troy still wants to prove itself as well, and I think the key for them this week, they've gotten off to a couple slow starts on their last couple games. I think they were scoreless against Gerald 2 weeks ago, and then last week they were trailing Academy for a bit, and then it was tied at halftime 14-14 before Troy pulled away and won that pretty convincingly. But Ronnie Porter was saying, we need to start much quicker
Yeah.
against Rockdale if we want to compete and stick with them, because it might be kind of a barn burner like it was between Troy and Cameron Yo.
Yeah, I mean, and the Tigers, with that offense probably will not come out slow. I mean, they're going to start firing as soon as the gates open in that one. In my opinion, I think this one really comes down to, if Rockdale can produce offensively like they have been against Troy. It's just, we've already mentioned it about the teams that they faced. They have yet to face an overall team like Troy, but they also haven't faced a defense like Troy this year. So, their main guys, Jace Robinson at quarterback, Cameron Valdez, their running back, and Keyshawn Raven, their top receiver. It'll be interesting to see how those guys produce against Troy, who they've allowed 172 points all year long. So over, 7 games? I don't know what that average comes out to be.
A ton of those were against Robinson.
Yeah,
Right.
so, yeah.
We told you Daniel's not good with the
I'm
math.
not. I can't give you exact numbers, but I mean that secondary is it's going to be tough. So it'll be interesting to see if Troy can get the stops they need. I mean, I was kind of telling you, Marcus, earlier. I can still see Rockdale putting up 30 at least in this game. I mean, I think they just have too many weapons, just too much talent offensively. The question will be is if Troy can answer back and if they can get enough stops on defense. I think Troy, with Zach Herbachick, and they've kind of started opening up the passing game a little bit these past few weeks. Ben Presley, their quarterback, he's really kind of found a groove there as Ronnie Porter's kind of influenced the passing game there the past few weeks. Their tight end, Bo Workman, he had a big game against Cameron Yo a couple weeks ago, and then I think last week he against Academy
Had a pick six.
Right, yeah, Josh, you were there for that.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think they'll be able to answer. I think just the main thing is, if they can keep the Rockdale defense in check. If the Tigers can produce like they can, I think they'll probably leave Troy with a win. But again, they haven't faced a defense like Troy this year, so it'll be interesting to see how they rise to the occasion. Lago Vista, a good test that they passed last week, but no disrespect, but Lago Vista's not Troy, so it'll be interesting to see how that one goes down.
Last year, Zach Urbacek had like 285 yards rushing against Rockdale. And, I mean, you'd think that the Rockdale defense has been reminded of that probably a bunch this week by the coaches. And there's probably newspaper clippings and stats up on the wall, like
Well, just
kind of
what a-
challenging their
yeah.
pride. Like, if we can't do that again, if we're going to have
Well,
no
what a-
chance to
That's
be.
the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
people know Zach Urbacek's out there, and they're going to run the ball with him. But teams just, he's coming.
28 times he
Gotta
rushed the ball. He carried the ball last week against
It's kind of
Academy.
like the new version of Trayon Smith, the great Cameron running back from a few years ago. Because for 3 years, he was that guy. It's like, they're going to give it to him 25, 30 times, and you can know it's coming, and he's going to run for 200-plus yards almost every single game.
Yep.
So that's why, Rockdale knows Herbacek's going to get it a bunch. It's just, can you hold him to 140 or something and just kind of stem the tide? And
Well, Herbacek, man, what really helps him out is just his ability just to bounce off tackles. And I mean, how quick and how deceptive he can be in just changing directions and then going from 0 to 100 literally in a blink of an eye. It's pretty phenomenal. His offensive line gets a lot of credit. Big guys for 3A, experienced, a lot of seniors on that line. So they're definitely a big part of what they do. But that's going to be a marquee matchup. Cameron Valdez, they're running back for Rockdale, and then Troy running back for the Trojans. So you got a lot of talent there, two of the top rushers, and it'll be interesting to see who produces and who gets some bragging rights there. And
does
Greg,
either one of those teams have more like two-way starters than the other? Do we know? Like, is Troy playing more guys? Like Workman, I know is kind of a two-way guy, but do you know, does Rockdale play a lot of guys? Both
Not
sides,
really.
not really.
There were a
Okay.
couple
I know
out there, but-
I know Keyshawn Raven kind of helps out in the secondary just because of his speed. Really, I mean, if he gets an interception, he could be gone. Quick, just like Herbacek, who's just a one-way guy. But it's
Pretty
a
good coaching
point.
matchup too. Two guys that know what they're
Mhm.
doing and
Yeah.
have been doing it for a few years now.
Yeah, I mean, Rockdale might feel that it's, people are neglecting them, but I'm not sure that's such a bad thing for Rockdale anyway. I mean, flying a little bit under the radar like they are,
Well,
and sitting pretty good at 6-0.
Well,
They were young last year and they made the playoffs, and they're still actually, they have a lot of underclassmen who are now in their second year playing, and so they got a lot of upside. And these big games, I mean, they need to get used to these things. But Academy's at Cameron Yo, and Yo's going to be keeping one eye on that Troy Rockdale game while not looking over the Bees. But because if Rockdale beats Troy next week, Battle of the Bell, Yo has a chance, if they've still got that one loss in district, has a chance to go and beat Rockdale, and then we got 3 teams with one loss in that district. So
It's one of those where you're Cameron, you're kind of like, okay, who do we actually want to win that game? Do we want to go ahead and settle, make sure we get second place? If Troy goes ahead and win, and we can beat Rockdale, or do we want to take our chances with the 3-way tie, or maybe somebody else gets upset? It's kind of, I mean, obviously you want to go for that district title, or at least get a share of it. But if it's a 3-way tie, it's not always to your advantage,
Right.
yeah,
nothing's guaranteed.
And remember the Rockdale Troy game, like we think it's going to be close and probably something like a 1-touchdown game, but whoever does end up getting the upper hand, kind of as that game goes on, they're going to try to max out how many points they score.
Yeah.
Like even if it gets to on Troy's side or on Rockdale's side, I don't know what the cap. Usually it's about a 17-point
I think
cap.
it's a 17, right?
Yeah, I mean you're going to try to win by 17 at least if you have the opportunity to pour it on a little bit at the end. You're not just going to settle for a 3-point and walk out, because it might be important down the road,
right.
potentially.
Well, ever since that loss to Troy, the Yeomen have taken care of business. They've won a couple in a row, and including last week, beating Gerald pretty handily. So I'm not expecting too much of a letdown from Yo this week against Academy, which looked pretty decent against Troy last week, but they just have their offense is struggling, and especially with a couple injuries that they have now. I mean, that thing's going to be tough to get going this late in the season. They have to pretty much change everything that they've been doing. They were throwing the ball quite a bit with Jerry Cephas and Colin Mraz and Ryan White. He was a quarterback for part of last year. He's filling in, doing the best he can, but he's more of a running quarterback rather than a passing quarterback. So they're going to have some tweaks, and it's tough to adjust that quick. This late in the season, probably. But
and I was able to talk to Paul Williams, head coach over at Academy, and he kind of mentioned that whole sequence of events where they pretty much lost their starting quarterback Jerry Cephas and then their backup QB Colin Mraz there, probably in the span of about 36 hours. And he kind of was telling me about when he had to tell Ryan White, "Hey, it's you now. You're going to be the quarterback." And Ryan was just like, "Well, I'm good to go, coach. I'll do whatever, but it's been over a year since I played." And Paul Williams, it's either you or it's this right guard. So I'm not sure, sure which one we're supposed to go with. You're a little more mobile, a little better athlete. So, but I mean, they've just been snake bitten over there with injuries. They've had some. He was also telling me a couple of key safeties, Dalton Head, and then a couple of other guys that have gone down, and it's really kind of been a when it rains it pours situation over there. So they had high expectations. They're still gunning for the playoffs. They think that they can turn things around, but when you got Cameron Yo, that's going to be tough, and then the rest of the season is going to be a challenge, unfortunately.
Yep. Let's see. I don't mean to glance over Bruce Folletti, but we're going to. But yeah. We're getting to that time of the year where teams are, clinching spots here. But we're already at 32 minutes. I can't believe it. Time flies when you're having fun.
To be honest,
Is that what we're having?
if Temple can win and go to 5-0, it'd be really hard for them to miss the playoffs.
Right.
But I think there's enough of a jumble still where I'm not sure that would specifically clinch it. I mean, if they lost out and were 5-3, there might be a possibility of some huge log jam. But you'd like to think 5-0 would probably do it for Temple, but I haven't heard anybody say that officially. Usually Marcus is our guy on stuff like that.
Yeah, I just haven't had time to look at them all yet.
Yeah, we'll get to that point eventually.
Like Coach Stewart said at Temple, he did enough looking at seedings and standings last year. They're not really getting into that trap this time around.
No.
Just trying to go 1-0, Josh.
Right.
1-0 this week.
So am I. Which won't happen. I'll probably go like 0-12 somehow.
You'll find a way to tie.
Yeah.
No overtime.
Holland has Rosebud Lot. Holland should cruise there. Keep the eyes on the prize for the Hornets.
I will say, Rosebud Lot's only scored, 6 points all year? I mean, obviously it's a young team, but I was looking, there are at least 4 teams in the state so far that have yet to score, so at least the Cougars have that on 4 teams in the state.
Yes.
Not that that's much, but the Cougars come around. It's just going to take them a while.
Yeah. Rogers is the last team in District 838 to play a league game, and they get Hamilton, which looked like Hamilton had a pretty decent non-district run, and then ran into Clifton last week and lost 56-13. But Rogers gets to see what it can do in that district, which is obviously the true test, and kind of you start to gauge how successful your season is once you get to this point. And I mean, right now the Eagles, they've had a great run so far, 6-0. I don't think they've been undefeated this deep in the season for at least 5 or 6 years, maybe. Yeah. But now's where these tests start to mean something. Granger,
Hamilton might not be the freshest team after taking that pounding from Clifton, and now you got a rested Rogers team coming in. That could get semi-ugly if Rogers is.
Rogers really hasn't shown anybody any mercy. I mean, they're scoring over 50 points or about 50 points a game, and
just no regard.
No, they've it's been pretty impressive.
Safety. Yeah.
I mean, just considering Coach Roten, this is his 3rd year now, right? I mean, this is when you really want to start having that program come alive. When you take over something, and the way they've gone about it has been pretty impressive. Just kind of this rebuilding process.
You got to look out for that Rogers Clifton game down the road. Which I mean, looking at it, doesn't look like anybody else is going to stand in the way of those 2 teams.
No, the other teams we haven't mentioned in that district, Lexington and Florence, and both those teams have struggled. Lexington beat Florence 56-7, and that was Lexington's first win last week. So I mean, you know. And then another big one in the area, Bremont and Granger
That's
playing.
a good one.
So you know that's probably, although let's see, I don't know, that's probably the two best teams in that district too. So whoever wins
Yeah.
that one might have the inside track to
You got
the
Bre-
title
yeah.
there. But
Yeah, Bremont is 6-1, Granger 5-2.
Yeah.
What's kind of perplexing about Bremont is, I mean, you wonder if they suited up their starters for very long. They gave up 22 to Bartlett last week, so Bartlett's kind of struggling this year, but they were able to put up 22. So
You never know. It could have been garbage time points
That's
against
true.
backups, or
that's true. That's
you
what I
never
mean.
know.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
just-
You don't.
yeah.
But I think either way, that'll be a good one.
yeah, definitely. All right, I think it's time. Oh no, it's not time. It's time to say goodbye.
Oh, do we want to say goodbye? What do we want to
Daniel,
do?
I was gonna toss it over to you for the stats, and then he just gave me the like.
I'm tired, man. I want to go home.
He was thinking of the time limit.
The people
much
want
can
their
our-
stats,
how
and you
much
will
can our
give them their
listeners
stats.
You know what? I was just gonna like
He
go.
did tweet him out, so you can find him on Twitter.
Yeah, there you go.
Not all of our listeners are tweeters, though. That's
I'm the. So are we doing this?
I don't know.
Just do the top three.
Top three. Okay,
Get
I
on
don't know.
the tweeter.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. Here's your top rushers for the area. Thank you. Nathan Quattlebaum, he continues to lead the area in rushing out of Bruceville Eddy. 1,423 yards on the season with 19 touchdowns. He'll probably make it well over 20 on the season after Friday night. Zach Krabachik out of Troy, he comes in next. 1,197 yards, 18 touchdowns. And then Clay Cooper rounding out your top three out of Holland, 994 yards with 15 scores on the year.
Something's wrong with Marcus.
Marcus is just, I
You're
don't,
just now noticing that?
Things
Is that
are
a
just
Dr.
like,
Pepper shake, by the way?
words are just like coming out of his mouth right now.
we're off the rails, if we were ever on. But here's your passing leaders for the area. Jace Robinson, mentioned before, out of Rockdale. He leads the area with 1,610 yards, 24 touchdowns on the year. That is 24 more than Greg has on the year, so we'll keep track of that. Braden Brashear out of Cameron Yo, he comes in next, 1,492 yards, 19 scores. And Vance Willis out of Temple, he's got that offense running, 1,265 yards and 15 touchdowns for the year.
I'm just gonna throw this out here since he mentioned.
Here we go.
What do we got?
No, I was
What
just
do
going
we-
to say the next guy on the list, Trapper Enser from Bruce Valetti, is kind of an interesting one.
Yeah.
They've got Quattlebaum, and then all of a sudden now they're throwing the ball pretty well too, because he's got 1,082 yards passing and 13 touchdowns. Over to you, Greg.
We're using the run to set up the pass. That's for all you coaches out there. I was going to say, we haven't. Vance Willis, it's almost getting to be old hat now. Week after week, he's like getting better and better. You see another guy. I mean, if you're talking district MVP, based on everything you know so far,
Maybe a running back or somebody from Shoemaker, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe.
But
I mean, he's
He's
putting up
making-
big time
yeah.
numbers.
He's making a
Yeah.
case. Yeah.
So we'll see.
Come a long way from those. What
It
was
would be a distant-
Five interceptions.
It may
first
come
half.
down to the Temple Midway game. Maybe whoever maybe shines, or if it's
Maybe,
a close race.
yeah.
I don't know if Midway has a guy that's thought of in that light. But,
usually someone says something, or points out players,
like James Fulbright was a pretty easy guy last
Yeah.
year to say he's the best player in the district.
Yeah.
I'm not sure it was close.
Right.
Quentin Johnston's had a good year, but maybe not amazingly.
No.
Just they get up in some of these games and just put it away. They don't need to throw to him 8 times a game. Anyway, Daniel, I digress.
All right, and then to wrap up your area stats. Here are your receiving leaders through week 8. Keyshawn Raven out of Rockdale, 633 yards and 9 touchdowns. Braden Lilly out of Academy, he's really come on in his first year there, 578 yards, 4 touchdowns.
Athlete of the week.
And then, Kobe Young out of Cameron Yo, 562 yards and 8 touchdowns on the year out of Cameron Yo, not Cameron Young. That'll
You
do
did it.
I did it.
We did it.
Another
All right.
week.
Yep.
So long.
See ya.